Good day, everyone. I am Apolonio Siwakan Jr., a Catholic social teachings teacher, and at the same time, the coordinator of the Arope Office for Social Formation Senior High School. Today, we will discuss something about the human person and stewardship. For the objectives at the end of the session, you shall have first define the meaning of the human person from the perspective of the Catholic social teachings. Second, articulated the role of the human person as stewards in God's creation. Meaning, when we say stewards, we have a responsibility to the environment. Environment is not something that we have to lord over, but to protect and care. We have to take care of our environment because the future of our generations depends largely on how we protect our environment. We cannot survive if the environment is hostile to us. We can only flourish if we have a good environment. And third, as an application of what we have learned, we will analyze Catholic social teaching's notion on human dignity and stewardship through a case analysis in Hurtado. This will serve as your assignment and formative assessment tool. And for our review, kindly write your answer in the chat box, or you can simply turn on your microphones to answer this question. The question is, why is common good important in your life as a student? And for our motivation, the question is, what is your concept of the human person? Again, you can write your answers in the chat box, or you can simply turn on your microphones. But before you answer, let us hear first from the members of our community.
A human person is a relational being. They should establish friendship and family with other people.
A human person has to find their own meaning of success and happiness.
A human person has the ability to know.
Hi everyone, I'm Regina Sangadanan. I'm the new supervisor here in Ateneo for cleaning and cleaning staff here. So the question is, what is human person for you? So for me, human as we are created in the image, likeness of God. And of course, human as we are, we make mistakes. And I know that you can be disciplined as you are for yourself. Yun lang po. Thank you. Hi everyone.
3. What is the question again? What is a human person? Human person is equal and unique. While equal, because we all have skills and talents, and at the same time, we all have dignity and credibility. That is why we are all irreplaceable and unique. That's all. Thank you. 3. What is the question
thank you.
again?
What about
is a human person?
What is your
human
concept
person
of
is
the human
equal
person?
and unique.
You may now write
While
your answers in the
because
chat
we all have
box or
skills
simply
and
turn on your
talents, and at the same
microphones.
time, we all have dignity and credibility.
Okay, thank you for all your answers. To have a complete grasp of what a human person is, let us look at it from the perspective of the Catholic social teachings. Here, we will look at the human person as created in the image and likeness of God. Second, his or her dignity. Third, the sacredness of human life. And lastly, we will look at the human person as stewards of God's creation. First, the human person as Imago Dei. When we say Imago Dei, we mean image of God. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it says, "In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them." This means that the human person's origin is not from nothing, but from God. We are created in the image and likeness of God. And what does that mean to us? It simply means that when God created us, we are given a value, a dignity that is not just something, not a thing, but someone. We are not a thing, we are not cheap, of low value, but we are persons. And there is equality in this dignity. No one can say that his or her dignity is better than others. By the way, when God created Adam, Adam there represents humanity, not as an individual male figure. Only when Eve was created, there exists a distinction between man and woman. This is an important concept to show equality between man and woman. There should be no superiority. Now, how do we reflect in the image and likeness of God? When we say we are created in the image and likeness of God, it does not mean that God is a physical being with two arms, a head, a nose, etc. Rather, at a deeper level, it is saying that basic characteristics of people are derived from similar characteristics of God. Like a human person is capable of the following, which cannot be seen in other living beings created by God. And these are first, a human person is capable of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge. The human person, when we talk about self-knowledge, the human person is conscious of his or her actions. He or she can weigh his or her decisions, and he or she knows whether his actions are good or bad. The human person has the capacity to foresee the consequences of his or her actions. Second is the human person has self-possession. When we say self-possession, a human person has the capacity to control himself, like to be calm, to be angry, to be happy, etc. In other words, we have the capacity to control ourselves, to direct ourselves to something that is good, and to refrain from being dictated by our emotions. And lastly, the human person has the freedom to freely give oneself. Giving here is best expressed in terms of sharing one's talents, in terms of listening, in terms of sharing his expertise, or the giving of oneself to a lover, or simply being dedicated to one's work. If you have questions, you can write it in the chat box. Second is human dignity. Human dignity is something that cannot be taken away from you, no matter what happens. Whether you become poor, you are abused, you failed, you are heartbroken, hiniwalayan ka, ipinagpalit ka sa iba, still, you are meant to be respected because you have dignity. Question: what is required to have dignity? The answer is simply by being a human. By virtue of being a human person, you already have that dignity. Even if you are still a fetus, even if you are young or old, you have that value. You have that dignity. At saka, you need not to be someone else para magkaroon ka ng halaga or pahalagahan ka. Hindi mo kailangang maging siya or maging iba para respetuhin ka. We have our dignity. We have a value far more than money, gold, or anything that glitters. Do not lower your standards as a person para lang tanggapin ka. You are already enough. And third, we will look at the sacredness of human life. And because we are created in God's image and that we have dignity, our life then is sacred and we have rights. Life is sacred because it is a gift to us by God. And because it is a gift, it is meant to be respected and to be lived out to the fullest. Life is not something to be exploited or discarded. Rather, life is meant to be respected and be valued. The Catholic social teachings proclaims that dignity and rights of the human person are the foundation of a moral vision for society. What does that mean? First, let us define dignity. Dignity is our value simply because we are humans. And rights are things or rights we are entitled to simply because we are humans. There is a relationship between rights and dignity. Dignity is the foundation of rights, while rights protect the dignity of the person. A human person's dignity can only be upheld if his or her rights are respected. Coming from this perspective, a society can only become moral if it upholds the dignity and rights of the people. Any society that does not uphold the rights of the person is a chaotic society and is meant to perish. However, today, as society advances, there are a lot of threats to human life and rights. And these are abortion, murder, genocide, suicide, etc. And also the subhuman living condition, discrimination, detention, deportation, slavery, child labor, etc. In the encyclical Centesimus Annus, Pope John Paul II has drawn up a non-exhaustive list of human rights. The first is the right to life. The right to life is the right of a child to develop in the mother's womb from the moment of conception. It means that no one, even the government, can end your life. It comes first in the list because you cannot exercise other rights if you are, of course, dead. Second, the right to live in a united family and in a moral environment conducive to the growth of the child's personality. Third, the right to develop one's intelligence and freedom in seeking and knowing the truth. Fourth, the right to share in the work which makes wise use of the earth's material resources and to derive from that work the means to support oneself and the dependents. Magkaroon tayo ng trabaho. And fifth, the right to freely establish a family, to have and to rear children through the responsible exercise of one's sexuality. Now let us have an activity. You may write your you may write your answers in the chat box, or you can turn on your microphones. First question: do the negative traits make us less human? Second, the drug addicts, corrupt politicians, rapists, are they less human? Third, do you agree with the Catholic social teachings notion of the human person that life is sacred and that every person has rights? Why? Again, you may write your answers in the chat box, or you can simply turn on your microphones. Okay, thank you for all your answers. We'll now proceed to the human person as stewards to God's creation. Human dignity and care for God's creation are interrelated issues because dignity calls us to reflect on the caring relationship of God and on His creation. And of course, on a practical level, Human life and dignity are deeply affected by whether the natural world flourishes or suffers. If we take care of the environment, we will flourish. If we will not, the environment will become hostile to us and we cannot survive. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si, has pointed out two challenges that has negative effects to the environment, and these are the throwaway culture and the techno-economic paradigm. The throwaway culture is defined as the ruthless consuming, exploiting, and discarding human life and natural resources. Let us try to explain this. First, the consumption. Is consumption bad? Of course, no. Consumption is important. What is bad is overconsumption. When we say we have overconsumption, there will be overproduction. And when there is overproduction of goods, our environment suffers. Why? Because the environment cannot produce in an instant the things we need. There is a gradual process as to how the environment gives us the things we need. For example, in order to have a tree, it takes 5 to 15 years before we can use it. Now, if you abuse it, we will be the ones to suffer in the long run. In addition, both the production and consumption pattern contribute to the worsening of climate change. How? For example, in order to produce more, the greedy people manufactured the demand by scaring us, seducing us, and misleading us. Meaning, these greedy people conditioned our mind that we have to take this, we have to have this kind of product, because if we have this product, we are like, we are in the society, we become handsome, we become beautiful, we become powerful, or we become significant. That is how we are conditioned. And so, of course, the challenge is, let us be aware of how our mind is conditioned in order to prevent the overconsumption. Because again, if we consume more, there will be overproduction and the environment will suffer, and as an effect, we will also suffer. Next is exploiting. Exploiting, of course, sinisira ang karagatan, kagubatan, at lahat na pwedeng pagkakitaan. And then discarding. Discarding human life. It is a way of thinking, especially on the level of pragmatism. Pragmatism, I believe that something is good if it is useful, or something is good if it is beneficial. It becomes problematic if we apply it in the person. For example, kapag hindi natin nakikita ang kahalagahan ng isang tao, or it's either tinataboy natin or hindi natin tinatanggap. For example, if you look at the lansangan, sila ang mga tao na ang tingin ng society ay walang pakinabang. As an effect, sila ay iniiwasan, iniiwan. And also, discarding human life is related to abortion. The second point is the techno-economic paradigm. The techno-economic paradigm means, it emphasizes above all things efficiency, speed, technology, commodification of goods, and services and quick and easy profit. The techno-economic paradigm should not be confused with science and technology themselves, which Pope Francis encourages and is thankful for. But the techno-economic paradigm is rather an abuse of science and technology and an application of them beyond their proper domains, raising them to being a totalizing worldview with no room for other forms of thought. For example, we use technology in view of getting more profit and not minding its potentially negative impacts on human beings and to the environment. Questions and clarifications? You may write your clarifications in the chat box. And for the reinforcement and synthesis of today's class, first, again, can write your answers in the chat box or you can simply turn on your microphones. What did you learn? Okay. Second, what was unclear? And then third, how will you concretely apply your learning today on human person and stewardship? Okay, thank you for all your answers. By the way, this coming September 16, 2022 at 1 p.m., you are required to watch an online conversation entitled Apakan sa Tampakan, Is Responsible Mining Possible? Thank you for joining today's conference. Bye-bye.